In September, the Flynn presented a series of free, world-class performances in public spaces across Vermont. Among them, the return of Playing Fields, which expanded over previous years to present performances at schools and on athletic fields. This year, a herd of massive, colorful giraffes from a French performance troupe visited communities as part of the project. The executive director of the Flynn joined us in our studio and said the giraffes and other activities during Access to the Arts Month were all part of its mission to bring the arts to all Vermonters.
We try to do that all year, but we really leaned in this past September to really bring the arts, the performing arts, to communities everywhere. We have a program called Playing Fields. We went to schools across the state. We took over the lawn at the state capitol. We've been doing education programs, particularly with a program called Kickline with lots of elementary school dancers. And it was a real commitment to say that not only is the Flynn trying to bring the arts to everyone in Vermont, but that we all deserve that. You know, that's better for us as communities. It's better for us to care about ourselves and our children and our future. So that's the goal.
And importantly, this programming was provided to the communities at no cost to the audience.
Well, sure, if we're going to make sure that everyone has access, if we say that the opportunity to the arts is critical, it's almost non-negotiable, right? It's something we all really need and deserve. Well, then we didn't want to prevent anyone from having that opportunity by imposing any kind of barrier. So we didn't charge for it. We brought it to communities. We made sure that whatever your physical needs, we could accommodate. You didn't necessarily have to travel very far because it would be in your community. Hopefully it would be a place that you and your children feel welcome together. So any barrier we could come up with, we tried to think about that. The two works we did were not text-based, so that hearing or language was not going to be a barrier. We really thought about how access is critical for everyone, and that's what we try to do.
What I love about what you did is you went to communities that were really all over the map. You went to Hyde Park, you went to Hardwick, Georgia, many other spots. So you really brought truly world-class performances from Italy, from France, to communities that might not have a major performing arts center.
Somebody had said to me, we were in the Northeast Kingdom, and said, "Why are you bringing these artists from France all the way here?" And I said, "Because you deserve that. Because we're trying to kick open the door to these kids' imagination. And we like to think that when they're seeing these amazing artists, and these giraffes were truly beautiful, when you see that work, you think, wow, anything could happen here. And the moment a kid thinks that anything could happen where they are, they have the opportunity to become anything. It happens sort of subconsciously. And that's the way that the arts create real journeys of imagination, and therefore helps our lives and our futures grow into new realms.
You are, at your core, the Flynn, a Burlington organization. But yet for the month of September, you really became a statewide arts organization.
I think we've always been a statewide arts organization. You know, the Flynn has a long history of education programs. You know, one of the things when I got here, people said to me was, oh, it doesn't matter where I go in the state, people tell me about a journey that they took on a school bus to the Flynn. And so we've been serving thousands and thousands of Vermonters, starting with, you know, their small person days all the way to every part of their life for many years. And this was just another way to reach people. You know, regularly in the building, in our main theater, we bring people from Middlebury and Waterbury. And so we've always tried to serve the whole state. And what we found is that we just need to keep doing that. And you know, with schools, for example, we have a long student matinee program, and I just mentioned we had 20,000 kids last year come to the main theater of the Flynn. But with school districts, budgets are challenging, so the kids can often only take one field trip a year if they can take that. School districts have trouble hiring bus drivers. So we just thought, all right, well, we have to change our methodology if we're going to believe that every kid should have access to the arts. So we're going to go to them. So I like to think of the Flynn, it's not about the place. It's we're not just a theater. We have a beautiful, beautiful theater. It's almost 100 years old. But that's not our mission. Our mission is the people of Vermont. So that's what we have to keep thinking about. We have to keep finding ways to engage. And without the access and that opportunity, then none of this matters. So we're going to go to wherever people are.
Several years ago, you made a commitment to make the programming on the waterfront for Jazz Fest in June free as well. What did that do in terms of your audience size?
It brought 5 times the audience to the waterfront. So when we had a tent that was ticketed, you know, some amazing shows happened. The festival has a long history and a long legacy of bringing in brilliant musicians. But it was a very sort of private thing. We built a private space on a public park. And I just thought that's not who we are. And so let's make it as open as possible. A lot changed in a way, but all it did is become more itself. And making that free was a big part of that, but also expanding what the music could do and make sure we provided opportunities for everyone at every stage of their life.
But that same ethic about reimagining that festival, the waterfront is a place that anyone can come to and enjoy free. It's a public space. That's the same ethic that you used in September, programming at schools, on the State House lawn. These are public places.
That's right. I think the arts are most powerful when they happen in a space that people feel they belong in public space. I like to say that the arts can rewrite the cultural memory of a place. You know, you sitting down on the lawn with your grandmother, watching Italian dancers hang from the sky, that's a memory that changes that family forever. You think about that place in Montpelier. You think about the state capitol as being a place for you. You think about that as connected to your childhood. You think about that as connected to imagination. You think of that as connected to world travel. And suddenly your home, the places you go every day, are kind of reforged anew. And that's really critical. I mean, that's what the arts are really meant to do. They're empathy generators. So what happens subconsciously is we watch this work and we have deeper respect for other perspectives, deeper respect for other cultures, hopefully, and most importantly, deeper respect for ourselves and where we might go in our lives. We have to do that. And if the arts are only available to people who can drive somewhere, or people who can afford a ticket, or people who are in the know of a certain art form, then what we do is limit those journeys that people can take. And as I said earlier, you know, the arts are kind of non-negotiable for me. They're oxygen. They're how we understand ourselves. And if I don't understand your story, and I don't have deep respect from where you come and what you have to say, I'm not a full member of the community either, right? Everybody's story matters if anybody's story matters, and that's what the arts do. So you kind of have to keep widening the opportunities for people. You have to keep going to places. You have to keep getting in the way. Some of this free work I like to call an interruptive gift.
Of course, we're talking about free programming for audiences. This is certainly not free for the Flynn. This took a lot of work on your part to bring these artists from Europe, especially. Talk about how you're navigating this challenging funding climate.
Well, I appreciate you acknowledging it's a lot of work, and it's just not me. The Flynn team is truly extraordinary. I work with some of the most dedicated people who really believe in the mission to provide access to the arts for everyone. And they get up every morning and they work their tails off to do it. And sure, things change, but you know, when we go out to businesses in Vermont or individuals who are willing to support us through philanthropy, and we tell them the story of what we're trying to do, they get it. Their light goes off. And they're like, wait, you can take what the Flynn does so beautifully in its home in Burlington, and you can do that on a school football field? And we're like, yes, we just need support to do that. And people have been really, really generous. But it's not just the people who provide philanthropic support or sponsorship, which we're grateful for, so thank you. But it's also the schools. The superintendent said, sure, come take over the school for a day. What'll happen? Working with teachers, working with the facilities director, you know, the guy who mows the lawn of the soccer field is sort of worried, what are you going to do on the field? And then they become part of the team. The crane operator at the show at the State House lawn, it was called Cubo. This is an amazing story. Mayo Cranes is his company. It's a local Vermont company. It was his dad's construction company, which he had taken over. And the first job he does when he takes over the company from his dad is pilots a crane as a choreographer in a dance piece over the State House lawn. Braden was his name, and it was such a, he didn't know that he could do that with a crane. He didn't know that he could be part of an arts experience. And so what we do when we think about access is it's the families, it's the people who work somewhere, it's the people who work with us. We're building a whole tapestry and hopefully changing the state as we do it.
Vermont itself is quite the tapestry. This time of year, you know, our fall foliage is on full display. Is this a particularly special place to present outdoor performances just because of our surroundings?
Look, we're blessed with beauty in this state. Like, my life is littered with it. The trees are changing clothes like fashion teams every season, right? And they're dressing themselves for spring and then summer and now fall. And so we want to be outside. We want to enjoy the natural beauty of that. And we're kind of searching for our own humanity as part of that. How do we fit into the world? And the arts are just part of that story. So being outdoors and part of the beauty that surrounds us in Vermont makes sense. Last year we presented a work on top of Mount Philo. It was the first work that Flynn had done on top of a mountain, and people hiked up to participate in it. And we had 50 Vermonters singing together. It was delightful. But it felt right that Vermonters were going to join forces and lift their voices together on top of a mountain. That made sense. That made sense about who we are and how do we create rituals together to celebrate what's unique and special about this place. So I think Vermont is particularly suited for outdoor work. But anywhere we can gather is a good opportunity for storytelling. It's for sharing, for caring about each other. And we do that in a lot of ways in our lives, but the arts are kind of the engine of that.
And again, it does sort of change people's conception of what theater is. They're not going indoors necessarily to sit in the dark and pay attention to a lighted stage. They're experiencing that in a different setting, a different venue.
Oh, that's right. But there's no one way to do this. So for people who want to come to the Flynn and they want the curtain to go up on some amazing work by the Vermont Symphony Orchestra or Lyric Theater, we're going to do that. We're going to keep doing that because that's critical. And for people who can't do that, we're going to come to them. The 20th century, the performing arts in America were really defined by theaters like the Flynn. And so for many years, as I grew up, that's what the arts were to me. I would sit down, as you said, and I'd face one direction, the lights would go out. And the artist was sort of offering something for you to witness. And as we've changed in our culture, as we moved into the 21st century, and the idea of co-creating or the idea of audience agency really takes place. We think a lot about in the media about what is the audience's agency, how are they participating, how are they making choices. Cell phones are about that, streaming is about that. We have a lot of questions around the ways in which audience want to engage. And so you have to start to think about, well, how do we allow for maximal audience agency? Where can we change the context and allow the arts to be the kind of container for dialogue that they were always meant to be. And sometimes that happens in the theater, and when it does, we have the best one in the state. And sometimes that needs to happen at your school, because in many towns in Vermont, the only civic building might be the school. That's the place where your kids go. There's a place where you vote. It might be a place where a blood drive happens. And so as a civic space, the arts should come in and lighten that too. Sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's a mountaintop or the waterfront. There's lots of ways to think about how the arts work, but that's the Flynn's job.
So it sounds like the kind of experiences that people had during September, during this Access to the Arts Month, it sounds like it's your hope that that will only continue.
Oh, absolutely. So this is the 4th year of our Playing Fields commitment to be at schools. As you mentioned, since 2022, we've made the waterfront free for Jazz Fest. The theater isn't on our mission, the people are. And so where people live, where they work, where they play, where they feel themselves, and when they have the most opportunity to learn about their neighbor, that's where we'll be.
And in keeping with its commitment to free performances, the Flynn has a new free monthly performance series for kids ages 3 to 5 and their caregivers. It's called Flynn Zone Kids Hour, and shows are held the second Saturday of each month at 10, featuring local performers.